Hello. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about do-it-yourself fish traps. Every person, particularly those of you in the saltwater marine aquarium hobby, are going to need this feature. You're going to need a fish trap at some point to trap an aggressive fish, to rehome a fish. If you're going to transfer tanks, from one tank to another, you're going to need to use this method. Fish traps, particularly the do-it-yourself variety, are they take a whole heck of a lot of hassle out of the process. The alternatives are tearing apart your rock work and basically trying to chase a fish down, which is stressful for the fish. It's stressful for the other inhabitants of the tank who you're not trying to catch because you're tearing everything apart trying to catch them. And quite frankly, it's incredibly stressful on the owner. So everybody loses in that situation, in my opinion. The good news is that a do-it-yourself fish trap is super easy to make. The method I'm going to give you, you can make one literally probably in about 5 minutes. The first thing is that usually speaking, the easiest method by far and the safest method by far is to take a bottled water bottle, a plastic bottled water bottle. Some people say soda. I'm not a fan of that because you run into the potential issue of having sugar residue on it, or high fructose corn syrup in most cases. But with a watered bottle, you're getting just basically filtered water residue at most. And realistically, as long as you dry it out, you're not even getting that. So, super safe method for using. Some people they'll cut the top off, and then what they'll do is they'll try and tape or invert the other plastic and wrap it around it. For me, I mean, unless you're trying to catch a really small fish like a firefish or something like that, I would not use that method because the opening in the bottle, in my opinion, is just too small for most fish. The method I prefer is just simply to cut off the top and toss the top, and then take the top of the water bottle and actually just kind of fold it and kind of crunch it over a little bit. So it forms kind of a funnel and a cave that leads into the water bottle. Um, the water bottle, one of the things that I do differently than a lot of people do, a lot of people take the container and lie it down on its side in the tank. I actually prefer, even though I know it's a little more tricky as far as convincing a fish to go in there, I actually prefer the straight vertical method where you take the water bottle and you stand it up straight and just rest it on its base on the bottom. What I do is I'll take, if you're like me and you've got inverts in your tank, chances are you've got some extra shells, maybe a few little bits of, rubble or rock or something in there from the tank. So you can use something that's already in the bottom of your tank and then just take that and weigh it down on the bottom, and that'll keep it in place so it's not getting blown around by the currents. The other advantage to this method is that you're putting the fish at a disadvantage and you're putting yourself at an advantage in terms of removal, because the fish is going to have to swim down face first down into the trap in order to get at the food, whatever it is you decide to put in there. And it gives you the advantage of not having to reach down as far into your tank, and that the opening is the first thing you're able to grab with your hands, or whatever method you decide to use. Some people use strings and stuff, or fishing line. I'm not a fan of that in any way, shape, or form, because it means you basically have to stand by your tank and watch and wait for the fish, which can quite honestly just take an eternity, as you well know. Whereas if you leave the bottle method there, you can basically, go take a nap or go do something different for a while, and you can come back and your fish might be stuck in there and just kind of munching away at the food in there. I have used the method that I just described to you, the water bottle sat vertically with some rocks and shells weighted in the bottom, to catch an aggressive flame angel who was also a coral nipper, and a super aggressive redhead salon fairy wrasse. I trapped both of those using the method that I've just given you. The good news is that when you're dealing with a more aggressive fish, they tend to also be a lot more curious and a lot more bold, so it means you're more likely to catch them and to trap them. So I've used this method, as mentioned, for a couple of different fish, removing aggressive fish. The advantage, of course, to the trap is that it's minimal stress for the other fish because they basically just kind of, ignore it or kind of shy away from it. Whereas, the other methods you might have to, if you're tearing apart your rockwork, you're going to spook the heck out of the fish that you're not trying to catch and stress them out really bad. So in both cases, when I did that, and I reached my hand straight down into the tank and just quickly clamped my hand over the top of the bottle, and by the time the fish realized what was going on, it had nowhere to go. It was trapped side to side because it was cramped there. There wasn't much room for it, and it couldn't figure out that it had to do a complete U-turn and go straight vertical through and line itself up perfectly in order to get out. So you gain a huge advantage there through using this method. The method isn't 100% perfect, and it may take you some time for the fish to get used to the bottle being there in the tank before they become more comfortable with it. One other advantage to the vertical method that I mentioned, as far as setting it up so that it sits up vertically, you eliminate basically accidentally catching hermit crabs and shrimp and other stuff that you don't want to catch in there. Whereas if you leave it on its side, you're more likely to get them in there, and then you'll have to fish them out and deal with that. This way, you just get the aggressive fish. So anyways, that's all I have on the do-it-yourself fish trap, and thanks for watching.